Hey, it's Ben. So today we're talking about there's a meditation practice that I developed that I named the Instinctual Mind meditation. So how it all developed, I should mention though, as I'm getting started here, I think I missed my nap time today, or not think I did. And so I feel a little drowsy, but I think I can pull this off. But let's see. Years ago, I had I was enacting, I had these patterns playing out in my relationships when a lot of the trauma of my childhood and adolescence that was resurfacing in my mid 20s. And so I found myself forming these attachments to women who were either disinterested or unavailable, or in some instances, deliberately hurtful. and And I had this instinctive sense when it was evoking all these like excruciatingly painful emotions to just dive into the depth of it. And I would go so deep into it. And sometimes I'd feel my body just consumed with all that, those overwhelmingly painful emotions. But at a certain point, I could feel it breaking open and coming out of my body in waves. And it was very powerful. It helped me to, by diving into the depth of all these emotions, it helped me to begin to dissolve those unhealthy attachments and to begin to break apart those patterns that I was enacting in my relationships at the time. But a big mistake that I made, because I didn't know any better, I didn't have anyone to teach me or guide me or anything. I had to figure all this stuff out all on my own. And yet these patterns were so deeply entrenched, and they were continuing to play out. And it was torturous at times. I just suffered. And but around the time I turned 30, I was seeing this woman, and and she gave me the ultimatum: move in. And she wanted to start a family. And I'm not commitment phobic or anything, but I think it just because it wasn't the right person. and and so I felt this strong internal resistance, and so understandably she broke it off. And and then after some months, when well, initially I went through my own sadness and grieving, but she met and became engaged. I'm not sure, maybe she got married, I don't know, um, but when she did, she completely cut off all ties with me. Like, after we started getting to be friends after the months were passing, but when she got involved with the other man, and he said, if you have to be friends with your ex, I will leave you. And so, wanting to preserve what she had, she understandably just cut off all ties with me. And so I felt this deadness in the middle of my chest. And so late at night, driving from Santa Fe back to Albuquerque, New Mexico, I would center my awareness and that deadening I felt within my chest cavity. And I was doing that night after night. And at first, didn't feel much of anything. It was just numbness, deadness, and but as I continued, there were little faint vapors of feeling and loneliness, longing, emptiness. I kept going night after night. And after some time, it felt like my whole chest cavity was just aching, and all these emotions that had been trapped in my chest cavity for years and years, it was all coming out. And as I continued, and more of that emotion that had been backlogged in my chest cavity, as more of that was processed, then I started feeling these euphoric feelings and connectedness to a higher power. And but after about, I don't know, 3 months or so, I thought, well, I wonder what would happen if I brought my awareness down into my abdomen. Being the little scientist, the little experimenter that I am. So then I started, as I said, bringing my awareness deeper down into my body, focusing deep within the abdominal region. And at first, I didn't feel much of anything. It's pretty numb. Just initially, just little heaviness, little congestion. But I like to do things thoroughly. So I started night after night, bringing my awareness deeper into my abdomen. And as I did that, I began to experience a greater range of feelings, physical sensations. So, starting off, as those feelings and sensations began to increase, there was initially, I could feel a little digestive activity, but it got stronger. And then there was like rumbling, churning. Night after night, as I continued, there was warmth and then heat, even burning, pulsing, tingling. Sometimes there were sharp shooting pains. Other times there's this ache, in different parts of my abdomen, a lot of different sensations. And then I noticed that it was stimulating my digestive activity. Like I continued night after night doing this practice, and I could tell my digestion was improving. It also, it really starts stirring things up when you do this practice. And so sometimes you have gas coming out both ends. You can be belching, you can be farting. Sometimes, as it's stirring things up down there and starting to clean out your digestive tract, you find yourself having to run to the toilet even. But yeah, there was a definite improvement in my digestion. And then other things I noticed, like as I kept doing this practice, I'd be going into this really deep state. Sometimes I'd have all this imagery playing out. It's like sometimes it was a little, almost like all these like little daydreamy or something, and somewhat dreamlike. And then at nighttime, it's my dream state intensified. Like as I would sleep, my dreams would actually become more vivid. And what I find that happens is when you do this practice is that there's something about the focusing deep within the intestines that it connects to that deeper reptilian part of your brain. And so there is like, when you defrag your computer, you clean out the hard drive. And so it felt as though like all this like clutter that had accumulated, because we live these lives, like just all this overstimulation. We have so many things happen over the course of our lives that we don't really process or digest. And it just gets stuck in our bodies. And like your computer, and you get all this garbage backed up in your hard drive, and it slows the functioning of the computer down. And so there's a similar thing in our bodies, our brains, our minds, that we get backed up with a lot of clutter. And so as I was doing this practice, what happened is I could feel this purging, like it was just cleaning out all this clutter that was filling up all this space or the bandwidths. And so as that happened, it's like my senses started becoming more vivid. There is more awareness. There is greater lucidity. There's also something in more recent decades that they've been doing more research into, referred to as the enteric nervous system. And what they say is that there's like something like 100 million neurons lining your digestive tract. And they refer to the enteric nervous system as the second brain. And what they're finding is that within the lining of the digestive tract that, within the enteric nervous system, it produces neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and other neurotransmitters. Now, this is new science as far as like this exploration of the enteric nervous system, and even within the brain itself, this understanding of neurotransmitters and their functions and all that. So I look forward as time goes on to future discoveries or understanding that will be coming over time. But so many people, what happens is there's this massive disconnect from this part of our bodies, from the abdominal region. Many people tend to inhabit their bodies from, I guess you could see if I stretch back from the diaphragm up, and in some instances from the head up. So there's this profound disconnect. A lot of people just living in their heads, or there's varying degrees of dissociation. And I mean, you have people that have suffered a great deal of trauma, and there's like depersonalization and derealization and all that, more severe forms of dissociation. But I think across the board, most of us are to lesser degrees, we are dissociated. We don't fully inhabit our bodies. And so what happens is that there's a lot of the stress that we don't process, the emotions that we're not processing, a large amount of it, a great deal of it, accumulates within the abdominal region. And so there's a combination, all that stress we internalize, the emotions we don't process, and then there's the physical toxins, because a lot of people's diets are just absolute garbage. All the fast foods, all the processed foods. You go into a supermarket and just aisle after aisle of just absolute garbage, things that people really are better off not consuming. Body can't process that stuff very well. And two, just the fact that all that stress and emotion that accumulates, if you're not able to work constructively with your emotions, you're not, like our life experiences or subsequent cognitive and emotional responses, it all needs to digest. If you cannot digest that, what happens? It doesn't go away, never just goes away. It just backs up in your body. A lot of it backs up in the abdominal region. And you walk into a room, for instance, someone's angry or upset without them saying a word. A lot of times you feel it. I'm sure you've had that experience at some point. So that emotion you don't process, a lot of it gets stuck in your body, especially a lot of it's in your abdominal region. It's in the cells, the organs, and tissues. And that stress and backed up emotion, it impairs the functioning of all the organs and systems of your body, the cells themselves. And so when that happens and the cells, the organs, and all don't function as well, garbage backs up. The cells, the organs, it's harder for them to cleanse or purge themselves of waste products. And so it just becomes a big mess, a toxic waste dump for a lot of people. There's all that stress, all that emotion, all the physical toxin. People experience bloating, distension. Well, that's kind of the same thing, but in even more serious problems, like it contributes to a lot of our digestive disorders, like IBS or irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, Crohn's disease. All these things, are to a large extent, it's stress or resulting to a large extent from a lot of the stress, a lot of the emotion that's backed up. There are other causes as well, which I don't have time to fully elaborate on in the scope of this video. But even when there are other causal factors or other causes, the stress and the emotion that we fail to process, it exacerbates these issues tremendously. So many people that I teach this instinctual mind practice to, what happens is as they're doing this practice, especially when they do it consistently, what happens is it alleviates much of the stress, the discomfort. Their digestive organs begin to function better, especially the small, large intestines, all that. And so it's a very powerful practice to work with. And there's this cleansing, this purging of this part of your body. So where do I want to go with this? There's so much here. Let me just check in with my notes a bit real quickly here. So again, when you work with this practice, what's going to happen is it facilitates this cleansing or this purging of your digestive tract. What I find is that the abdominal visceral organs, especially the intestines, but it affects the other organs itself. It's my experience and that of people that I've worked with is that your digestion improves, the function of these digestive organs improves, but also like your immune system to a large extent is based out of your abdominal region. And just as you work with this practice, like this abdominal region is part of the very important part of our foundation. So it not only has the effect of improving your digestion, but it affects all organs and systems throughout your body. So that physically you become stronger, more resilient. Again, this practice works on many levels. That many of us struggle with various patterns of one form or another, like say in our relationships, for instance, a lot of people struggling with patterns of abandonment, unrequited love. Maybe they, see a lot of people that maybe they're in the midst of a breakup or divorce, and they have a tendency to get involved with individuals who are not a good match. And they tend to repeat the same dynamics in their relationships. And oftentimes what happens is people get stuck in these patterns where they're continually ruminating, they're obsessing about what didn't work in their relationship, why it blew up, and they struggle indefinitely. They're having a difficult time processing the actual events of their lives, the dissolution of the relationship and why it's not working and all that. And they stay stuck there. And a big part of the reason is because it's so difficult for them to digest their life experiences and their subsequent emotional responses. And when you're not fully inhabiting your body, it makes it much more difficult to thoroughly digest both your life experiences and your cognitive and emotional responses. But one of the things that I found happening, because I experienced a similar difficulty myself, as these patterns just kept repeating or reenacting. I continue these reenactments. And so what happened is I continue to work with this practice. What I found is it dropped me deeper down into my body. Like I began to inhabit more of my body. There is, instead of being dissociated and living from my diaphragm up, I began to inhabit my body more, at least from the abdominal region up. There was, again, more of this embodiment. And so I had more of my whole system, more of my body and mind could take these experiences when relationships weren't working, when I was struggling, and I was digesting those experiences where the relationship blew up, was digesting my emotional responses. And so it was a more thorough, more complete, a much deeper level of processing. So you get down into that abdominal level. And what happens is it's what I found that happens is it was enabling me to get to the underlying root cause of a lot of these patterns that were playing out in my life, in my relationships. And I have found that this to be the case, as I work with other people, and as I have the people that I work with individually, as I have them do this practice, it gets them much deeper into their bodies. And there's a much deeper, much more thorough level of processing. And so these patterns that they've enacted in their own romantic or intimate relationships, we're able to go deep into the underlying source. And it facilitates a much deeper, more thorough transformation where it's actually dissolving those unhealthy attachments and going in, it's being able to build this whole new foundation from which they can relate in a much healthier way. And wow. So another thing, as I said, is that many of us do not fully inhabit our bodies. We have these varying degrees of dissociation. And there are many times over the course of my life, being somewhat dissociated and having this kind of naivete where I'd be interacting with people and I'd hear what they'd say and I would take them at face value. And a lot of it, again, there was this disconnect on my part. And especially when people didn't do what they said and they were flaky and incongruent. And it really hurt at times. And maybe in some instances they meant well, and maybe they were sincere, at least as far as they thought they were being. And yet there wasn't that follow through. There was that incongruence. But what I found that happened is that as I worked with this instinctual mind meditation, is that instead of being up in my head and, disconnected and floaty and instead of taking people at face value, as I work with this instinctual mind practice, it's like it dropped my awareness way down deep into my body. And so as I became more rooted and more grounded in my body, I could be interacting with someone and I could hear what they would say, but I would also feel in my body. So it opened up this deeper capacity. It opened up this deeper feeling sense. So again, I could hear what they said, but I could also feel very deeply from deep, throughout my body, but especially from deep in my abdomen. I could feel where that person was coming from. I could feel what their intentions were. I could feel if they were congruent. I could feel if they were ungrounded. And it helped me working with this practice. I developed a much stronger or deeper feeling sense of where people were coming from. So I could feel what kinds of issues they were dealing with, how they were struggling emotionally. I could feel what resources they possessed or lack thereof. So yeah, working with this practice, it opens up your sensory awareness it develops. You develop this heightened sensory awareness by working with this practice. Another thing that would happen too is that as I worked with this practice, this instinctual mind practice, my intuition became stronger. There were times where I would feel things before they happened. I would just get some kind of impressions, like, and it was just this intuitive knowing, and things would just kind of pop into my awareness. I've also had experiences like there are times where I would start getting an impression of somebody. Maybe I would feel as if, we all have this kind of electromagnetic field that surrounds our body. They refer to as the aura. And I would just feel as if somebody was just kind of bouncing off of my aura, or impacting my field around my body or something. And before you know it, it's like all of a sudden it's like the phone rings and it's that person. And so again, I would just feel or sense things before they'd happen. And sometimes I would get an intuitive feeling that I would come across somebody, or maybe that they would call me or something, and phone rings and there they are. A lot of people struggle with having a sense of direction or purpose, when there's that disconnect. And intellectually, when we're up in our heads, maybe we have all these ideas, but they're not very grounded, and we have difficulty with follow through, with implementation. And what I find is that the more deeply we inhabit our bodies, the more present we are in the body, especially as we drop down into this abdominal region, there's a much deeper felt sense of like, okay, this is what I need to do. Now, this is the path I need to be moving down. As I would work with this practice and drop more deeply into my abdominal region, that awareness, that sensitivity opened up, I would just get a strong gut visceral feeling within my body, like, oh, okay, here's what I need to be doing. So it helped me to be more focused. Instead of being pulled in different directions, it was like, no, here's what I need to do. And so it would keep me focused, more on track with what I need to do. There's so many things that we're pulled in so many directions. We spend all this time on our smartphones, texting, and we're scrolling, and so many things that suck us out of our body. Our attention goes into our devices. And so there's this tendency we lose touch with this authentic inner core being that resides deep within us. And so as you work with this practice, this instinctual mind practice, what happens is it deepens this connection to the authentic core residing deep within you. It gets a lot stronger. Another unfortunate consequence of being dissociated, when we're disconnected or we fail to deeply root within our bodies, is that we're just not as desirable or as physically attractive. I know some of us, like, we grew up and we'd see these athletes that, they got a lot of attention, and if you're a guy and you see these like football players and other athletes, and more, our classmates tend to swoon over them and all that, and like us nerdy guys, and it's as if we were invisible sometimes. But one of the things about the physicality, the fact that they were playing, and that, there's something about that physical activity that helps to embody them more. And so as you work with this practice, one of the things that happens is, as I said, you become more rooted in your body, and you develop that helps you to develop a greater physicality. And the more rooted you are in your body, that helps you to become more attractive. You actually develop a more attractive presence. The other thing is, when people are dissociated, is that they're more susceptible or more prone to what you call anxious attachment styles. Part of it, especially those of us who maybe we suffered abuse or neglect and we didn't get a lot of our basic needs met as a child. And so because of that, we grow into adulthood. And so we're looking for someone to make us whole and make us complete and meet those needs that we didn't get met. So as you work with this practice, it helps you to connect more deeply with this authentic inner core being that resides deep within you, that resides within all of us. As this connection grows stronger, that enables you to be less dependent upon someone else to meet your needs. It's like, yeah, you still have basic human needs for a connection, but as you have a stronger connection with your own inner core being, you can relate in a healthier way so that there's less of a dependence. Now, a lot of people, as I said, as you do this practice in the beginning, and the way to do this practice too, best of your ability, you bring your awareness. Now, you start out, you close your eyes, you sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and you bring your awareness deep into the depths of your abdomen. And as much as possible, if you can, focus within the intestines themselves. This can be challenging initially. You know, it's like when I began to train with Shifu Li Tai Liang, the Chinese master that I've trained with for years in Xing Yi Quan, Baguazhang, Tai Chi, Qigong. When he began to show me the Qigong practices, I couldn't feel very much at all. But as I continued to do the practices, they became stronger, more vivid. I could feel all this power over time. And so when you do this, as you work with this instinctual mind practice, you may not feel very much at first. Some people, you know, especially spend a lot of time numbing or disconnecting, you know, shutting down emotionally. There's more likely to be that numbing. But to the best of your ability, bring your awareness down into the abdominal region. If you're having trouble feeling anything at all, one suggestion is you can place your hands over your abdomen. And as you focus on the abdomen, you're feeling the sensations on the abdomen. If nothing else, you can feel your hands resting on your abdomen. You may be able to feel some warmth coming from your hands into the abdomen. But as you keep focusing there, the sensations will grow stronger. It may take time. It may take, the first time you do it, you may not feel much of anything. It could take a few days, maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks, but just keep focusing there. As you continue to focus within the abdominal range, maybe first you might feel a little heaviness, a little congestion, maybe feel numbness initially, but just keep focusing there. You continue to focus, like myself and like so many others. You may start to feel a little digestive activity, a little rumbling, churning. You continue, and that intensifies. Maybe you become a little gassy, you start belching, farting or something. You have to run to the toilet. It's just starts awakening your digestive tract. You continue, sometimes sharp shooting pains or dull ache, tingling, pulsing, all kinds of vivid sensations. It will grow more intense, but just continue. Now, some people, even from the beginning, they bring their awareness into the abdomen. For some people, it can feel very uncomfortable. Why? Because the abdominal region, for many people, it becomes this vast repository of all the stuff, or at least a large percentage of all the emotions and stresses and all the things you just haven't wanted to deal with. Yeah, it becomes like this toxic waste dump. All the stuff gets backed up in there. For some people, initially, it could be very unpleasant to go there. If it feels gross and disgusting, like you don't want to be there, well, if you keep ignoring it, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. It can create digestive problems. If you're a woman, it can contribute to a lot of the reproductive issues that, with the uterus, for instance. So, best of your ability, bring as much awareness as you can to that abdominal region. And even if you have to start out just 5 or 10 minutes at a time, focus deep within the abdomen, within the intestines. If you're a woman, you could also bring your focus even deeper down into the uterus, ovaries themselves, because in addition to holding a lot of this stress, the emotions, these impressions of deeply wounding experiences of even some of the traumatic events that we live through in our lives, a lot of this gets trapped within the intestines. If you're a woman, it's also a good deal of that's held within the uterus, the ovaries there. As you continue to bring your awareness deep within the abdomen, deep within the intestines, within the reproductive organs there, as you continue to bring your awareness here, as you do so, breathe very softly, very deeply. Follow the feelings and sensations. As you continue to do that, it awakens the innate healing intelligence that resides within your own body and mind. So some of these emotions will surface. If they do, breathe into the emotions. There will be, the physical sensations. They will go through this progression. The emotions and the physical sensations will go through a progression. Most people, at least initially, when I have them focus in the abdomen, they're going to primarily experience physical sensations. Whatever you feel, it's important to be in a place of complete acceptance. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to make those feelings go away. You're not trying to breathe what you label bad things or bad feelings. They're not bad, they're just emotions. You just let it be what it is. As you feel what you honestly feel, whatever you happen to feel, whatever emotions, whatever impressions you see, whatever physical sensations, just feel what you honestly feel without trying to change it. Again, feel what you honestly feel and just keep breathing into it. Stay present with it. Because as you do so, there's this innate healing intelligence residing within your own body and mind. Same intelligence, like you get a cut, you get a bruise. As you work with this practice, this innate healing intelligence is going to begin to clean up the mess, will clean up the toxic waste dump. So some people, when I first work with them, may tell me, some people do tell me, that it feels dark and scary. Some people actually experience nausea when they first go there. We proceed gently, a little slowly at first. But as I have them continue to go into this part of their body, there's a cleaning out. The cells, the organs begin to purge themselves. The cells, the intestines, the other visceral organs, they become more vital. They become more alive. Again, as that happens, your digestion improves. And you inhabit more of your body. Now in our society, there's tremendous emphasis on the heart. Open the heart. Now, we feel the loving connection from our heart. There's a problem with that is a lot of people, they inhabit their body from the diaphragm up. And if they're so disconnected from these deeper parts of their body, they're disconnected from the abdominal region. And the abdominal region is this big toxic waste dump, all that physical toxin, all those emotions backed up, fear, resentment, anger, bitterness, hatred, jealousy, all those intense emotions. Well, those emotions are operating down in your body. They're operating from your subconscious, and that poisons your relationships. And that has a huge bearing on the type of individual you attract. It also keeps you, as I said before, it can keep you stuck in these really dysfunctional holding patterns. As you bring your awareness deep down into the abdomen, and these feelings come up, these emotions come up. When they do, be in a place of acceptance. Say, okay, these feelings are coming up. These feelings are here for a reason. Be fully present, accepting of the feelings as they arise. Breathe into these feelings, these emotions. Allow them to be what they are. Be with them from a place of acceptance. When they talk about self-love, if you deny, if you suppress these feelings, you're rejecting a part of yourself. When you can be present with these feelings, when you can be accepting of these feelings, what happens is, this is how you become more loving and accepting of yourself. It's like the love and acceptance you didn't get as a child, for instance. When you can be present, in this way you are parenting yourself. Very important. Again, whatever feelings arise, allow the feelings, stay present with them as you continue to breathe into them. They will go through a transformation. You will digest these feelings. This deeper healing intelligence will enable you to digest, to assimilate these very powerful emotions. You digest them. And so this facilitates a transformation within you. And as that happens, these emotions, as you digest, as you assimilate them, you become more grounded. There's these emotions, as they're transformed, they become fuel for growth. And as these emotions go through their transformation, there's a cleaning up, so that a lot of these kinds of distorted models through which you form unhealthy attachments, they go through this transformation. So it helps you to establish healthier connections. You establish healthier attachments. Again, when the emotions are suppressed and they're buried, what happens is you're just not as conscious of what you're holding in your body, and it poisons your body, and it can poison your relationships as well. But the more you can be present, it's like these emotions, they're transformed. These parts of you can heal. You integrate these parts of you. You become more integrated with these parts of you that were wounded. They become healthier. You become more whole. And so you can relate in ways that are much, much healthier. Again, we live in a society where there's so much emphasis on the heart, and yet actually the deepest bonding is actually from this abdominal region. When you can bond from this deeper abdominal region, it's a very, again, a much deeper, more visceral kind of connection. And so instead of being disconnected and these like undertones and all this stuff going on outside of your awareness, and instead of these like weird dysfunctional patterns that keep playing themselves out, this gives you greater capacity to get to the underlying core, or get to the underlying source of your issues, so that it gives you greater power, greater capability of healing and transforming these deeply wounded parts of yourself. And when you work with this practice in conjunction with other therapeutic modalities, if you're working with a psychotherapist, you're going to gain much deeper insight. If you're doing deep tissue body work, if you're working with a gifted healer such as myself, your body's going to become way more malleable, so much more responsive to the healing, so that you're going to make much, much greater progress. So crucial here. Let me just refer to my notes. I want to see if I left out anything that I want to add in here. Again, you work with this practice, and this helps you to connect with these deep inner core aspects of your being, that so many of us, with all the distraction and being pulled in so many directions, all the numbing, that many of us tend to lose touch with. Your senses will open up. Your sensory perceptions, as you work with this practice, will become much more vivid. As you work with this practice, a lot of the dysfunctional dynamics, it's going to open your senses so that you're going to see, you're going to feel more into the dysfunctional dynamics, your own, and you're going to see and you're going to feel more deeply into other people with whom you interact, with the situations you find yourself in. You'll be able to read between the lines. Working with this practice, so many people that I have taught this practice to, if you're struggling with bloating and digestive issues and colitis, Crohn's disease, many people that I've taught this practice to, it has helped them immensely. As you work with this practice, you gain greater clarity in your sense of purpose, direction, what you need to do, and you become more grounded. Oh, before I forget, which can happen when I get on camera, that deer in the headlights thing that happens. Doing this practice. So what you do is you sit comfortably, better to sit usually, doing this practice. But anyway, sit comfortably, close your eyes, bring as much awareness as you can deep into your abdomen, and just feel any sensations at all. If you're having trouble feeling, place your hands over your abdomen. Even if it feels a little heavy, flat, a little congested, if it feels numb, place your hands over your abdomen. Whatever you feel there, breathe into it. Very softly, very deeply. Keep your awareness centered in your abdomen. Sometimes it's hard for us to focus these days. We're so distracted. Our mind jumps all over the place. Your mind wanders, jumps off somewhere else. As soon as you catch yourself, grab yourself, bring yourself right back down into your abdomen. Keep refocusing. The more you do so, it gets easier to stay present here. Some people it could take, some people will feel sensations there immediately. We have varying degrees of sensitivity. Some people are tremendously sensitive. Some people are incredibly numb. Most people are somewhere in the middle. But just keep bringing your awareness here. Whatever you feel, keep breathing into what you feel and just follow any feelings and sensations. If you're struggling, or if you're having different experiences, if you struggle to make sense of what you're feeling, you can reach out to me. Just tell me what's happening. For that matter, I do offer 20-minute challenge resolution, heart mending strategy session. So I'll post the link below this video and you can go. I have limited number of these sessions available because I have a million things to do, but a lot of my own practice that I do and appointments, sessions I'm doing with people, and I'm traveling. So a lot of writing keeps me incredibly busy, but check my schedule, see if you can get in. Schedule challenge resolution, heart mending strategy session. We'll see what we can do for you. And let's see, anything else I want to, just bring as much awareness as you can, feel deeply into it. When I started, let's see, I would say the first week into it, the sensations were minimal, but after about a week's practice, it became more and more vivid. Like I said, all the rumbling, churning, burning, pulsing, tingling, all kinds of, a lot of times you do this, you're going to have memories surface. You'll have memories of events that happen in your life, sometimes more recent, but at times you'll have memories of events that occurred years or decades ago, things that you haven't even thought of in years or decades. And these things just live in the visceral organs of your body. And as that comes up, it gives you an opportunity to process that. And yeah, it's very powerful practice. For some, I know it's hard for many people to focus, to do practice in this culture, but all the different spiritual traditions in India and China, other ancient spiritual traditions, a lot of the people who attain mastery, the way they attain these levels of mastery is daily intensive practice. And so this is one of the most powerful practices that I found. And I've explored a lot of practices. This is one of the most powerful practices to get you deeply into your body, inhabiting your body. So I encourage you to do this. If you run into challenges, if you have questions, do feel free to reach out to me, because if I see you're doing practice, I'm happy to see that. I'm excited by that. So I'll do what I can to answer your questions and to cheer you on, to give you that added encouragement. So I'm going to say bye for now, and see you